Hello YouTube world, my name is Serene and welcome to Staying Serene. Staying Serene is a place where I encourage and inspire young believers to live by faith, pursue their purpose, and glorify God with their lives. And today I'm sharing a Serene Saturday on trusting God's process. Now this message is really important to me because I feel like it's something that I'm going through right now as I go through God's process. And sometimes it's really hard to just trust God's process because a lot of times it just doesn't happen the way that we want it to. You know, it's just that process is often a scary word because we don't know what comes next, and it always usually means something long and hard and difficult, and it's not really what we want to go through. And sometimes it just seems like God is not even there while we're going through the process, like he might be silent or not answering our prayers. But that's not true because God is always with us, and he's especially with us through the process. I hope this video is encouraging to you, to remind you that the process is not pointless. The process is how God prepares you to receive what he has for you. The process is really God molding us and shaping us to be the people that we need to be to receive what he has for us. And so let's get right into this YouTube video. The first thing I want you to remember is that God is in control. It reminds me of something that my mentor once told me, which is the result is God's. For us, we can get really worried and focused on the results, on the end goal, on the outcomes. And sometimes it just makes us feel like we're not in control. It makes us feel like nothing's happening, we're not moving, we're not progressing. And we are very attached to a certain outcome and goal that we have for ourselves at the end of the process. And the truth is that we are not in control of what happens. We are not in control. The result does not belong to us. It belongs to God, and God's going to do what he has to do. God's purposes, his will is what's going to be accomplished through the process. And so we just need to trust in him. We need to surrender our need for control over what happens and trust that God has good for us. I think an important part of trusting God's process is realizing that God's best is what's best for us. To realize that it's okay if things don't go according to our plan, according to what we think should happen next. Because oftentimes, God knows how to orchestrate everything exactly in the best way possible for our benefit. You know, God has better for us than what we have for ourselves. I mean, looking at my life and all the things that have happened, I can see that God was in control and that he orchestrated all of my steps to accomplish his purposes. And that was for good. One of my favorite verses that I've already said in a few of my YouTube videos is Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to those who are loved by God, who are called according to his purposes. Which means that if you are Christ, if you belong to Christ, then good is going to come out of the situation. Good is going to come out of the waiting. Good is going to come out of the preparation process. So whatever God is putting you through right now, whatever you are learning, whatever you're growing in, know that the result is God's, and that because it's God's, it's out of your hands. So you don't have to worry, you don't have to fret, you don't have to be afraid, but that it's in really the best hands that it can be. It is in God's hands, and we can trust the outcome will be good. I'm so grateful that things happen according to his plan and not according to my plan. The second thing we need to remember is that it may not make sense. The process may not make sense to us. Sometimes it's hard to remember that God, his ways are not our ways. His knowledge is far beyond anything that we can even grasp in our heads. And so that means that his processes, that they may not make sense. We not understand them. We might be lost on what God is doing because to the outside, to us, it looks like God doesn't know what he's doing. It looks like craziness. It looks like random events happening together, and we cannot see it because we're not God. And we're not meant to be God. We're not meant to know everything. We're not meant to have all the knowledge of the universe in our hands. This point that we may not understand everything reminds me of Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. And what that means is that we're not meant to trust in our own knowledge. We're not meant to, to trust in what we know. We're meant to trust in the God who knows everything, realizing that he is sovereign, that he not only is in control, but that he is all-knowing. We know that he knows everything, way more than we know. And so it makes sense to trust in the one who knows everything. And so we have to sometimes walk like on complete faith, because there's no way we're gonna ever completely understand God's ways. They're mysterious to us. They may not make sense to us, but we trust that he knows what's best, and we trust that He knows what's going to happen next. We may not know how it may come to pass, but we know that we can trust that God will do what He says that He's going to do. And so even though it may not make sense, we can trust God. We can trust that He will fulfill all of His promises to us, and we can hold on to them because we know that He is going to do it for us. Even when it doesn't make sense, we know that God is directing us. So even if we don't understand, we know that we can trust His process. The next thing we need to remember is that God's timing is best. Honestly, the process can be short, it can be long, it can be whatever length, but no matter how long it takes, we need to trust that His timing is best. The thing I love about God is that He will never give us anything that's outside of His perfect will or outside of His perfect timing. God knows that the waiting is worth it. God knows that it's best for us to get it at the correct time, because if we get it at the wrong time, who knows how that'll impact everything. It's just best to wait on His timing and to trust the process no matter how long it takes, whether it's short or long, because we know that God is going to accomplish what He intends to accomplish in us through the process. So His timing is best. And this can be really hard to believe because it feels so long, but we know that God is working. Not only is He working in us, He's working in the situation around us. And so we know that His timing is better than anything that we could have thought for ourselves. How long the process to take is not up to us, it's up to God. But we know that God's timing is worth it. That God's timing is what's the best possible timing for everything to come into alignment, for everything to happen for us. No matter how long the process will take, we know that the time is not wasted. We know that we're not just wasting time, but we know that this is a very significant time, it's a significant period, and we're going to get exactly what we need to get through the process. The final thing that we need to remember is that the process has its rewards. I think when you're going through the process, it can be so discouraging not seeing anything happening, not seeing, a harvest, not seeing the rewards. But we know that if we hold on, we will receive the rewards. And even if it's not exactly the way that we think, there are still internal rewards that we're going to gain from the process, because God doesn't just want to give us things. He wants to grow us. He wants to grow our character, our faith, our patience, our trust. He wants to weed out those areas in us that we need to grow in. He wants to provide us spiritual maturity. He wants to teach us. He wants us to be ready to receive what He has for us. And so sometimes He has to work in us before He can work for us. Sometimes He needs to make sure that everything is well with us so that we can receive what He has for us. And so we're going to get some lessons in this season. We're going to gain a lot of growth and development and maturity. This season is not just for us to simply just have our eyes on the physical things we're going to gain, but we can also look at the internal things we're going to gain in our hearts and in our minds and in our spirits. As God is molding us like Him, you know that God is never done working with us. He is always working on us as believers. And it's very reassuring to know that we are still a work in progress, and that this work in progress is not going to be done until the day of Jesus Christ. So that means that right now in the preparation, right now in the process, while we wait to possess, we know that we are being matured. We're growing in faith and in love and hope and trust and all these areas that we need. It reminds me of this incredible verse, James 1:4, which reads, "But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect, lacking nothing." A major part of the process is waiting, and a major reward of waiting is learning patience. Patience is the fruit of waiting. It's learning to be content in your circumstances, to be grateful, to not rush through things, to not be anxious to get into the next season, but to enjoy the season that you're in right now. There is so much to learn. There's so much to gain while we're in the process, and it just makes sense to learn as much as we can while we're in it, and then know that we're going to enjoy the fruits of our labor in the end. As Galatians 6:9 reads, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart." There is a harvest for us if we don't give up. There is a reward, there is a blessing, there is a fruit that comes from going through God's process. It is not meaningless. It is a purposeful season where we reap internal and external rewards. It's where we realize that God is working in us and through us, and He is blessing us as well. And so I hope this word was really encouraging to you. I just want to remind you to trust the process. It's not easy. It can be difficult. It can be lonely. It can be a hard season to trust in God's process. I think one of the hardest parts is waiting, because waiting is such a interesting season to be in. It can be a season where we find ourselves just yearning for what's next, but I encourage you not to despise what's happening right now because you're too busy waiting on what's happening next. This season has a purpose. This season is temporary. And you want to make sure you gain everything you can from this season. You know, God, He has a purpose in the process. God has a purpose in the process. He's intentional with what He does in the process. There is so much in store for you if you were to go through God's process. And I want to remind you of Ephesians 3:20. Now to Him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us. We have Holy Ghost power in us. We have the Holy Spirit living in us, and it's able to accomplish great things through the process. The process is necessary. It is necessary, and it is hard. But it is good for us, and so we should embrace it, celebrate it, and we should just accept it and trust that God knows what He's doing, even if we are not sure what He's doing in us. So the 4 things we need to remember is that God is in control. You know, the results are His, and we will accept whatever the outcome is, knowing that it will be good. Number 2, that it may not make sense. It may be beyond our understanding, beyond our knowledge. It just confuses us, the process, but we can trust in God's knowledge that is way beyond ours, because He knows everything. And we can trust with all of our hearts that even though our understanding is not enough, His is enough. His knowledge is enough to sustain us and direct us through the process. Number 3, that His timing is best. Even when it doesn't feel like it, even when we don't understand why things are taking too long, we know that God is not going to give us what He has for us outside of His perfect timing. It doesn't make any sense. He knows that the best timing for us, and He is going to help us to wait until we get to that perfect timing. The 4th thing, that there are rewards in the process, so don't give up, because the harvest, the fruit is on the way. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Okay, bye!